Welcome.
Welcome.
I said it.
Welcome to the depressing, bureaucratic, authoritative government, Big Brother future.
Corner.
The Corner. As this week.
That's what we're rebranding us.
That's our new brand. That's the new name of the channel.
It's got a great acronym.
Yeah, there it is. No, that's actually not the Green Corner. That's how I would describe this week's movie, Brazil. The little nightmarish comedy from 1985, sci-fi dystopia.
Kind of a British comedy, I guess.
Yeah, very British comedy.
Yeah.
This was my pick. I want to talk about why we selected this movie, but I think before we even get into the movie, we should briefly talk about Terry Gilliam.
Yes.
Because he's kind of the man, the myth, the legend.
This is his baby, part of a sort of loose trilogy of movies that begins with Time Bandits, which we had actually talked about covering.
We have.
Has been on my short list for a while. I love that movie. And then this, and then what is the third one? It's like the Count
Adventures of Baron Munchausen,
That's
I
the
believe.
one. He's also he was heavily involved in Monty Python.
He was. I learned he was the only American on Monty Python.
I didn't know he's American, actually.
I think he lived and worked most of his life in the UK and became a UK citizen. But he was born in the US. He went to Monty Python as an animator, like one of the guys working on the art.
Well, I remember because my dad would always mention him. He's like, he's the guy from Monty Python. I was like, who is he in Monty Python? He's like, he's the guy in the Holy Grail who dies and falls over and then the monster dies because he was the animator. I'm like, oh yeah, that great character.
When suddenly, the animator suffered a fatal heart attack. The cartoon peril was no more.
He's not like one of the main cast.
No, he was a writer. He's a behind-the-scenes guy.
He became one of the kind of main troupe, one of the main actors. And then I think most importantly, he directed the Monty Python movies.
Yes,
I believe.
I think so.
The Holy Grail, Life of Brian. But then after Monty Python, he went on to have quite the independent film career.
Weird and varied career.
Yeah, like the trilogy we just talked about, which includes Brazil. In 95, he went on to make 12 Monkeys, which I want to talk about because I know it's a movie that you really love.
That movie.
But he's still working. Like in 2018, he did a new adaptation of The Adventures of Don Quixote with Adam Driver and Jonathan Pryce. So he's still working, he's still around. And
he's just a very unique guy.
Yeah.
He just has a very distinct voice and does his own thing. And clearly every project is something he really believes in, which you got to respect in a world where Tim Burton completely sold out.
Right.
I'm happy that Terry Gilliam has just stayed Terry Gilliam
Still
forever.
doing his thing.
Yeah.
Still doing his thing. So we watched, kind of one of his original babies, his second feature. This was my pick. This is another Green Corner legend, Peter McLaughlin, my dad, introduced me to this movie when I was very young. He suggested we watch it, and it was young enough that I don't remember much specifics, but I remember it left a very strong impression on me. I remember liking it, which being a young kid is kind of surprising watching it now, that it would resonate with a kid. But it did. I remembered liking it, and I remembered the visuals. Yeah. The set pieces in this are very visually striking, and that's what I remembered when I thought back to this movie was him flying through the buildings and, all the weird government buildings. That's what you remember when you think about this movie. So I was due for a rewatch of it. I wanted to revisit it. You'd never seen it.
I had nothing.
Yeah.
The only thing I knew about this movie was my dad occasionally going, "Oh, that's a weird movie." And I think I've heard that sentence 40 times, and I knew literally nothing else about Brazil. In my head, it was like an adaptation of an Orwell book or something.
Which kind of is.
I didn't realize it was actually wholly original. I thought it was an adaptation of something right up until I looked it up after the movie ended. Yeah. So that was really cool.
I think people have called it his adaptation of 1984.
84, yeah.
Yeah, George Orwell's. It's not an official one though. It's in spirit.
It's a totally unique story or an original story, and I knew nothing going in.
So I guess we should talk about our first thoughts before we get into the movie proper. It was my pick. So how did you like this movie, Avery? What were your impressions of this guy?
I really liked it.
All right.
I enjoyed the heck out of watching this movie. I thought it was way funnier than I expected, even knowing it was Terry Gilliam going in, because 12 Monkeys has some giggles in it, but it's not a comedy.
Yeah, 12 Monkeys I meant to mention, I have not seen.
Okay.
And so it's interesting because you'd mentioned Time Bandits is on our short list for this show. 12 Monkeys is as well. Right. And I'd forgotten either of them were Gilliam until prepping for this episode. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Time Bandits is a kid's movie that doesn't quite have the same sense of humor, whereas this movie this was a Monty Python movie.
This was very funny.
This was really funny. I didn't expect that. And I did not expect the level of ambition that went into this. This is crazy ambitious. The amount of stuff they crammed in there, and this movie never gets made today.
No.
And it was really cool to go back and see. I mean, the sets were so much. This was Blade Runner with a sense of humor. It was kind of how you describe it.
So glad you've already talked. Yes, that's exactly what I would describe it as.
Yeah, and like that's what makes Blade Runner really tough, I think, is that it's so kind of dour and it's just kind of not enjoyable unless you really like looking at the technical aspects to watch it, even though it is a great film. But no, I enjoyed basically every minute of this movie. I thought it was a cool picture of the era. This is now our fifth 80s movie, which I don't know.
Yeah.
we keep doing it, but this was definitely very different than all the other ones we've watched. And I liked the performances. I loved the creativity that went into it. It definitely dragged, and if anyone told me that they couldn't stand this movie, I'd be like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I 100% get that. But no, I got a ton out of it. I really liked it.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. It's definitely a movie where I don't think you can predict people's feelings about it very well. Like you said, if people said they just hate this, I'd have a hard time being like, what?
Yeah.
Because it's so divisive. But I thought this was great. I really enjoyed it. It is not a perfect movie. There are some issues, particularly around the love interest and what they chose to do with that.
We should say,
plotline.
Now in basically back-to-back episodes, we've done Kim Greer's 2 movies ever.
Yes, I caught onto that very late.
Yeah.
Because she was
she's the wife.
Molly, Will Graham's wife in Manhunter, which is very bizarre. But yeah, her whole plot line didn't really land, and we'll get into that. It's probably my biggest. There's some pacing issues in the middle of this movie around her major section that I think fall a little bit flat. But other than that, this movie is great. It perfectly blends the comedy with the dark elements, because as funny as this movie is, it actually does tackle some really scary stuff. It's obviously like a warning about authoritative governments and bureaucracy taking over our society. Very much, this is a big fear of Terry Gilliam's that kind of shows up in a lot of his work, I understand. And it doesn't hold the punches on that stuff. Like, it lets the kind of fascist government element of this be as scary as it should be, while still weaving in the comedy. And you need a really deft hand to pull that off that most directors cannot.
Yeah, like Paul Verhoeven pulls it off by just going so over the top, by really exaggerating everything, and the ability to send a similar message and similar critiques as RoboCop and as Starship Troopers, while having much more British, reserved, kind of clever. Like, no one's freaking out.
Yeah, it less in your face of a farce.
It's really, it was impressive.
Not to mention the sets.
Oh my God.
Every single location in this movie, you truly feel like you have been transported to another world. You don't feel like this is on Earth. You don't feel like this is just in London with some set dressing to make it look like sci-fi. Like, you are completely immersed in the world and the atmosphere, which is so funny that you've already brought up Blade Runner, because I thought this was going to be my hot take. I said, this movie is what Blade Runner is in my head. Right. If you take the comedy out, this is what I sit down and watch Blade Runner. This is what I expect I'm going to get.
Right.
But then I watch Blade Runner, I'm like, this is kind of boring, and I don't know what's happening, and it doesn't seem like anyone's doing anything. This movie is what Blade Runner is like supposed to be in my mind's eye of what that movie is.
That's a funny way to put it. Another comparison I want to make, and this is a crazy one. When we watched a movie last year that we did not talk about in the Green Corner called Beau is Afraid, that is a crazy movie, and I was pretty sure no one had ever made anything like it. This is kind of like it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Those 2 movies are closer to each other than either of them is to just about anything else.
That's a very fair comparison.
In just arc and in weirdness and in the deftness with which it ties themes and continues to leverage its themes in the use of all this ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
Over a very long movie.
Yeah, and a creator having complete full reign.
Yes, and very much that now and then. How the hell did this get made?
Yeah. It opens with some clouds that tell us, with some titles on the screen, this is somewhere in the 20th century.
Right.
Quickly establishing this is Earth, but we're kind of an alternate history Earth. This isn't meant to be taken as reality. This is going to be a bit of a cartoon ride.
It is, and we should say it's not, in fact, Brazil. The title Brazil refers to a song that comes up, and we can talk about kind of how that plays in.
Yeah.
The country of Brazil is not mentioned.
No.
There's no Brazilian people in this movie.
No, it is presumably set in the UK. Like,
Yeah.
it's very British, the entire movie. The movie actually opens after that with a commercial about ducts.
Right.
Which is a great intro to what this movie is going to be all about.
Hi there. I want to talk to you about ducts.
It's some guy from Central Government Services telling you how you can buy new improved ducts for the ducts that are going to be all over your house.
Literally everywhere. The whole movie.
And then the TV explodes because of a terrorist attack. And we're introduced to this idea that our big brother government is under attack from terrorists. These terrorist cells are everywhere, but the government, who has their eyes on everyone and is in charge of everyone's safety, is on the terrorist threat, and they're being run out of town, which I guess we'll revisit later.
Yeah, and we cut to an interview with Mr. Helpman,
Yes,
who is the director of the Bureau of Information. Is that right?
I think so.
And
yeah.
they do
essentially the Gestapo.
Exactly, and they do just enough establishing here. They say things like something like 10% of the GDP of the country is going towards the Bureau of Information, and
And the cost of it all, Deputy Minister, 7% of the gross national product.
I understand this concern on behalf of the taxpayer.
Yeah, and it establishes the government is a big brother fascist authoritative regime.
but that isn't naked about it, right? It's not like it's not quite as like George Orwell. I am a dictator. They
Right.
at least still have the facade of.
Yeah, they're trying to pretend they're for the people and all that.
If these people would just play the game, they'd get a lot more out of life.
The real setup for the entire thrust of the movie is that someone at Central Information Services is typing up an arrest report and is supposed to be typing up the name Tuttle.
Yeah.
But a beetle or fly is
yeah.
in the office, which he chases around, kills with a newspaper, and it falls into his printing machine and changes the name on the arrest warrant from Tuttle to Buttle, which is what springs the entire movie into motion. We cut to the Buttle family on Christmas Eve.
Just the straight up like Dickens characters.
Yeah.
It's just cute little kids and the parents.
Yeah, like straight up Tiny Tim. They even say like, how's Santa gonna come down the chimney if we don't have a chimney? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, don't worry, dear, we'll
I
have
think
it.
A Christmas Carol's on TV at this point.
Oh,
Like,
probably.
they're
That would
going
make
for
sense.
it.
And then they get raided by the government. They come in through the window, they kick down the front door, they cut a hole in the ceiling, and like 20 guys with assault rifles come in. And the way they wrap up Mr. Buttle is
Yeah.
like genuinely horrifying.
Oh,
They
yeah.
put him in like this body bag on a hook, get his wife to sign the arrest warrant.
Yeah, it's like something out of The Raid.
Yeah.
But it's so funny.
It's so funny,
Just the
and-
camera angles. It almost gives me like Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
In the way that it's like, objectively, this should be terrifying, but I'm laughing my ass off.
Yeah, and the way the little officer is like
Yeah.
explaining, sign here, and just gives you the paper. It's
She's
so
just
Monty
so
Python.
shell-shocked.
Yeah.
That is your receipt for your husband. Thank you. And this is my receipt for your receipt.
The best part about this scene is that there's the neighbor upstairs who's Jill, the
Yeah.
kind of love interest for the entire movie. She goes to peek down after the raid is completed, and the guys downstairs just start shooting at her. And the guys upstairs are like, whoa, whoa, we're not.
Mrs. Buttle, are you okay?
We're Department of Works!
The two maintenance guys who get shot at, they go to replace the hole. It's just the comedic timing of like, man, we don't make mistakes. They just drop the plug right through the hole.
Slightly too small for the hole.
Mistake? We don't make mistakes.
This is a movie, I think our show, The Green Corner, especially these deep dives, is a good surrogate way to watch movies. If you don't want to watch these movies, we talk about them, we watch them.
With horror stuff especially, that's something we try to do.
Yeah, but with this movie, we're not going to be able to recount all the funny bits. You should go watch this movie for the sheer number of jokes we're going to miss, because it's still worth it.
And we are going to spoil everything, but spoilers don't matter for this movie in the slightest.
Bloody typical. They've gone back to metric without telling us.
We cut next to the Department of Records.
And I have, very embarrassingly on my part, in my notes, I have the B-movie song. Because the theme that plays here, that's the only thing I knew it from. It's like the Office theme, the doom, 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 Dun, 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 dun.
That's the Brazil song.
Yeah, it is, but I didn't know that.
Oh,
I knew it
okay.
from B movie
The
because
B
it's in B movie.
Didn't know.
I mean, and obviously, it's directly. And you look it up, and it's like it's the Office theme from Brazil.
Right.
I had no idea that's what this was from.
That's so funny.
And it's been parodied a million times.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's in like everything.
Well, because
but-
this is a great scene, right? Because
Yeah.
it's this like it's your mind's image of the busy office. People
Yeah.
are flying around, printing papers, running around, yelling. It's like the most effective business workplace you could ever imagine. Except the second the boss goes back into his office, everyone turns on a movie and just stops working.
And I just want to shout out Ian Holm, man.
I
That
know.
dude is the best dude on screen all the time.
Yeah, for anyone who may not know, Bilbo Baggins, of course.
Ash from Alien.
Alien. Those are the two I always think of.
I'm sure he's in. Oh, I know I've seen him in other stuff, but like genuinely, he's the best, most compelling person on screen all the time.
He's had a long and distinguished career.
Mm-hmm.
I think he passed recently.
Oh, I don't know that.
And he lived happily ever after, to the end of his days.
Yeah, I have to agree. Ian Holm is fantastic. He's like the perfect nervous little guy.
Yeah.
And there's elements of Bilbo to shine even in this performance, like those little nervous tics. But he's like a lived-in character, and he plays Mr. Kurtzman.
He's like a scumbag here. He's not like a sweetheart like
No.
Bilbo. He's not a nervous sweetheart.
But he's still kind of pathetic and
Yeah.
lovable in like a weird way. But he plays Mr. Kurtzman, who's the supervisor of this wing of the Department of Records and the boss of Sam Lowry.
Mr. Mr. Lowry, would you step in here, please?
Who we're now introduced to, our main character, played by Jonathan Pryce, who is another guy who has been acting for a million years and is still very busy. He's in the new
Yeah.
Three-Body adaptation. He's been on like 15 credits in the last year.
That's crazy.
And he's probably best known as, for younger audiences, as High Sparrow from Game of Thrones. That was kind of a
He
big...
was Elizabeth's dad in Pirates of the Caribbean. He was in a couple of those. He was
Yeah.
the bad guy, and I think the worst Pierce Brosnan James Bond.
Okay.
That no one remembers.
Right.
You'll never die again twice tomorrow.
Right. That's it. But
He's around. Like you
he's
see him and
around.
you're like, oh, that guy.
That
Yeah,
guy. And he plays Sam Lowry. And we're introduced to Sam Lowry via dream sequence, where he's got these beautiful feathery wings and the suit of armor, and
It's
he's
like a David
flying.
Bowie video.
It is so David Bowie. He's flying around, dreaming of being free of this whole, oppressive bureaucratic world, just flying on his own above green pastures. And he has this visions of this woman that he thinks he is in love with, who we know is this lady Jill, who was at the raid. So we're introduced to him through dream sequence, but then he ends up, he wakes up and has to go into the office, and he has a conversation with Ian Holm. So what happens is we are introduced to the character Jack. So after Sam Lowry kind of goes back to the office, we're introduced to Jack, played by Michael Palin,
Right.
who's another Monty Python alumni, who's a big character, comes back up later. I want to call out this is the intro of Jack because it has one of my favorite lines in the movie about the twins versus
Right.
triplets, which I'll just play for you
play it.
here.
Give my regards to Alison and the twins. Triplets? Triplets? God, how time flies.
What we find out is that Lowry got a promotion at work. Sam Lowry got a promotion at work, but he suspects it came from his mother. His mother is like this aristocrat who's very plugged into the upper echelons of society.
It's your mother, isn't it? Pulling strings again.
So he goes to meet his mom and complain that he doesn't like that he only got a promotion because of her, because
Right.
he doesn't want a promotion. We're kind of establishing at this point, Sam does not like the bureaucracy. He doesn't want to be a part of the machine. And even though he's getting a promotion, he doesn't want it because he doesn't like all this stuff. He likes his dreams.
Just happy where he is.
He's happy where he is. This is a great scene with his mom because it does have the facelift scene, which is this is a like almost horror moment of his mom getting her facelift where they're pulling the fat back.
And it's Jim Broadbent. It's
Yep.
Professor Slughorn, who's also been in a million things.
Yes. Pulling her face fat back physically and then wrapping her in saran wrap.
Yeah.
Him and his mom, from that point, go to the restaurant. They go to a restaurant to have dinner with his mom's weird friend and her daughter.
And like sort of rival. They're just these rich people, caricatures.
Like aristocrats.
And I don't know if this is the first time, but this is like a thing where his mom's wearing the shoe just on her head.
The shoe hat.
Like the way that they do over the top fashion.
Yeah.
And is in parody that. Just, it's so funny.
I also had a note here because we of course saw the commercial about ducts.
Right.
Hi there. I want to talk to you about ducts.
When they go into the restaurant,
Yeah.
there's a fountain and there's like 500 ducts that just
It's like
go.
toxic waste just pumping right past them.
What I do want to talk about in the dinner scene is that there is a terrorist attack.
Right.
They're sitting at the table and a bomb goes off in the corner of the room that like seemingly kills several people. Like you see someone's body get like eviscerated by this explosion.
Yeah.
But they all just continue their dinner. The restaurant doesn't close. The waiter comes over and still takes their order.
He puts like a little screen up between
Yeah.
them and like the emergency services workers.
Yeah. And this is where I want to take a little pause and talk about this because this movie goes over the top a lot. Like
Yeah.
it really pushes it. And when it started this gag of like, there's been an explosion in the restaurant, a terrorist attack, but they keep eating and the restaurant keeps functioning. I was kind of like, I get it. But it's a little bit of a childish joke that like
Right.
everyone would ignore this. And it's like, it's such an obvious joke that I was almost annoyed that it was going on a bit long and there was all these people coming to the restaurant and sirens and police and fire.
It's just very like Monty Python's
It
Flying
is.
Circus. But
So I was annoyed. I was kind of like, I was not annoyed, but I was kind of like, it was grating on me. I'm like, all right, wrap up the bit. But then this beautiful thing happened where they kept going. And it didn't end. And it went on another 2 minutes or so and got louder and more people came into the restaurant. And they pushed it over the limit where it became funny.
yeah.
And this movie does this a lot of times where I was like, I'm not sure this is funny. Or like, I get it, but it's not like, haha. And then they keep going. And then eventually you do laugh. And that's a very sensitive thing that not a lot of people in comedy can pull off.
No, I get that's a good point. And it's one of the things I can compare. I'm not going to talk a lot about Beau is Afraid because I assume no one in the world has seen it. But one of the big things about Beau is Afraid is that it's largely like an unreliable narrator thing, you think?
Yeah.
And the point of it is that Joaquin Phoenix's character, Beau, is in all these horrifically stressful situations that no one else is affected by.
Yeah, everyone else is like, fine.
And that's kind of how this felt.
Right.
Where like, I'm not sure that this was going for unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
But this scene, it serves to kind of put you in Sam Lowry's shoes and make you feel the way that he feels being surrounded by all this nonsense bureaucracy,
Yeah.
kind of to a heightened degree.
Yeah.
And no one else cares and is like, they're like berating him for not participating.
Yeah, like he's the odd one out
Yeah.
in every scenario.
Meanwhile, you're right there with him like, that was a bomb!
There's a bomb that went off.
You have to say the number.
I must tell you all about it.
Number 3.
When Sam goes home from dinner, he goes back to his apartment. Probably one of my favorite sequences in the movie.
Yeah.
His air conditioner is broken. So he tries to call Central Services to fix his air conditioner, and the call doesn't go through. And then Harry Tuttle shows up. Robert De Niro shows up as Harry Tuttle in like all black get-up balaclava at gunpoint, sneaking into Sam Lowry's house. And essentially what this is that he is Harry Tuttle, who is like a vigilante air conditioner repairman.
Right.
He illegally intercepts phone calls to air conditioner central repair because he doesn't think the government does a good enough job fixing air conditioners. And he comes and illegally fixes your air conditioner for free while like holding you at gunpoint as a freedom fighter.
It's baffling.
How do you come up with this shit?
This whole system of yours could be on fire, and I couldn't even turn on a kitchen tap without filling out a 27B/6.
And the fact that it's Robert De Niro.
I know.
And at this, I went and looked up his credits. I'm like, was this like his second movie? Like, oh no. No.
He was established.
He was like one of the biggest actors in the world at this time. And just to cast him in this, he's just in the wrong movie, but in a way that's so funny.
Yeah, and I think he wanted to be in this. Like,
guess.
he pushed Terry Gilliam to let him have a role. He originally wanted the role of Jack.
Okay.
But Terry Gilliam had promised it to Michael Palin.
Yeah.
So he gave him this one.
I mean, this really works that he's also the only American in the movie.
And
the fact,
Jill, right?
Maybe, yeah, okay, she is, right.
But
yeah,
they're
yeah.
both against the society, so it
Right.
still works.
Yeah, but like the fact that Robert De Niro is just like, when every time he pulls out the gun makes me laugh so hard. He's doing like these combat roles. And just like him against like, and Bob Hoskins shows up a minute later
Yes.
as with his sidekick as the actual Central Services repairman. And like the rivalry they have, like the animosity they have is so funny.
I was dying at this part. Because, yeah, like, Tuttle illegally repairs the air conditioner, but then the actual air conditioner guys show up, Bob Hoskins, and they're so mad that they aren't able to do their job.
It fixed itself.
Oh, it fixed itself.
Fixed itself.
These don't fix themselves. No, they don't fix themselves.
And this becomes like a feud that will last the rest of the movie. They're
Literally.
like really pissed off. But the whole concept of Tuttle being a vigilante air conditioner repairman is such a perfect like little synopsis of what this movie is all about. It's a perfect commentary on the society, on like Terry Gilliam's views on this, while still being extremely funny, all in one character.
And he really serves to kind of evoke the feeling of the dreams. Because like you have the dreams where he's kind of soaring above the clouds and it's the only green space you see in the movie and it's the only time he's happy. And Harry Tuttle is one of the only things in like the real world that kind of breaks out of the oppressive bureaucracy.
Yeah, he like gives Sam some hope.
Yeah, exactly. And he's just so fun and charismatic when he's doing it. I loved it.
And I think this is such a good illustration of how this society, this is like a bigger thesis point I have overall, but this society is so bent on their rules, right? Like you must do it this way, you need to have this form to apply for this, you must, everything's bureaucracy and red tape and checks and balances, but none of it works.
Yeah.
It's all completely dysfunctional. And that's, you can take that for granted, but you could have made this movie and had all the government bodies be this strict and evil and oppressive, but actually functional.
Right.
And still told the story. The fact that everyone is completely inept really plays into like the charm of it.
I mean, where would we be if we didn't stick to the correct procedures?
We'll be back. We'll be back.
The one thing I have to call out is when Tuttle leaves his apartment and ziplines away, he ziplines at like an 85-degree angle directly down, and I cracked up by myself watching this. We finally kind of get back to the Buttle-Tuttle debacle.
Right, we're in with Lowry and Ian Holm, Mr. Kurtzman in the office. And they've figured out, to both of their complete bewilderment, that a refund check has been issued due to the clerical mistake that led to Mr. Buttle being kidnapped and presumably murdered.
Yes, we should clarify. Mr. Buttle was kidnapped and murdered by the government in the opening scene. It was supposed to be Tuttle, Harry Tuttle, who we just met, the air conditioner repairman.
Right.
And the government's way of like apologizing for that is issuing a refund check, because in this world, the government bills you for the interrogation they do on you. You have to pay for the interrogation. So since they established that he was not the right guy, they are refunding him the money that they billed to interrogate him to his now widowed wife.
Right.
He's been overcharged for information retrieval procedures, and someone somewhere is trying to make us carry the can.
Can I have a look?
Ian Holm is so good in this scene because he's so stressed that they've got this refund check.
Right.
Because he knows they can't give it to Buttle because he's dead now. And he lingers on that for a minute, like, he's dead? But then immediately his major concern is that he's going to get in trouble in the bureaucracy for having this check and not doing the proper things with it.
Dead? We'll never get rid of the damn thing now.
And the level to which he is like anxious about this, and I think he even says, I might as well just off myself right now. It's like he can't possibly deal with this.
He's just the most pathetic guy, and it's just so funny.
Well, that's it then. I might just well go and hang myself now.
Sam does head out to go return the check to Mrs. Buttle and her kids, and this is just, how do you even talk about this scene?
This is, when we talk about this movie blending the dark and the comedy well, he's giving his dialogue to her as if he's like businessman, like, oh, how you doing, Mrs. Buttle? And she's a widow who just found out, or is assumed that her husband is dead. And her performance is genuinely pretty harrowing. She's like teary-eyed and doesn't say anything.
She's completely shell-shocked. She can, like, barely get words out.
But her performance would fit in a serious, dark movie. And then you have Jonathan Pryce doing kind of Monty Python-esque comedy stuff, but it all works.
It does. The only knock I would say is that, and it's not really a knock, Jonathan Pryce is kind of a dick here, which makes sense.
He is
And like
kind
this
of a
happens
dick.
a couple of times, especially with how he interacts with Jill later. That's kind of a very British thing, in a similar way to how, Tim from the British Office is just like way scummier than
Right.
Jim from the, like I think that's just kind of more of a thing. That in the British sensibilities don't expect the protagonist to be a good person as much. Especially back then.
But also, like, this is a kind of hero's journey where he learns and grows as a person. So him being like a dick at the beginning of the movie still kind of works.
Yeah.
Because he does have an arc later.
But just some of the stuff here, where he's like, do you know how much trouble I went to bring this check out? I didn't have to come. There's like bullet holes. And like...
I didn't have to come here, you know, Mrs. Buttle.
And he even says, like, to the hole in the ceiling, he's like, oh, there's a hole in your ceiling, you should get that checked on.
Oh, what happened to the,
Through the hole in the ceiling, he notices Jill,
Right.
who's the woman from his dreams. And they kind of do a little Scooby-Doo, whoopsie-daisy, and she ends up downstairs. He
Yes.
chases her out, and of course, his car is on fire and all the wheels are gone.
This is a great bit of comedy because he goes down and his car has been blown up.
Yeah.
And he pats out the fire with a mattress.
Yeah.
And then the car actually is kind of fine, even though it's been blown up. So he gets in it to drive, and then it doesn't start, but not because it's been blown up, but because the tires have been stolen.
Yeah.
It's like, there's so much shit going on.
And all these little kids that are running around are just like there's so many funny little details about like they're all just like shooting at each other and...
Hello? I wonder if you could tell me where that...
Pizza!
Sam goes to his mom's party because he decides he wants to find Jill. But in order to find Jill, he needs better like security access, which means that he actually now does want the promotion. Because if he gets the promotion, he'll be able to have access to information services, and then he can look her up in the database and try to find her.
There is one way around it. I could always accept promotion to information retrieval.
He goes to his mom's party. She's very well connected, and she knows.
We missed how he got invited to the party.
Oh God, yeah. I don't even know how to. I'll just show a clip. It's pretty confusing.
Mrs. Itinerary requests the pleasure of your company! At her apartment tonight!
And when he gets to the party, he's again held at gunpoint
By the guys in the Napoleon wings.
And he's held at gunpoint. And then even after his mom like says, "It's my son, let him in," they're like patting him and doing the metal detector all over him. They're still pointing guns at him.
Yeah.
It's pretty excellent. But he's there to see Mr. Helpman.
Right.
Which is weird. I just connected is another Game of Thrones connection.
Yeah, because he was the really old guy, like the Maester Aemon.
Master Aemon.
Of the Night's Watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
The super old guy. Anyway.
So he's like the most senior guy in the bureaucratic government that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
He knows Sam's mom, and Sam helps him pee because he's in a wheelchair with a very awkward scene.
Mm-hmm.
And as a thanks says, I'll give you that promotion. Even though you turned it down, we'll give you that promotion to the information services or whatever it is.
Information retrieval.
Information retrieval, which is just the Gestapo of this movie. Sam gets his job at information retrieval.
Yes.
This is, we're talking about sets.
I think I was blown away already by the sets when we get to information retrieval and when he first gets up the elevator to the
even before that,
yeah.
the lobby. The lobby's like this monolithic, it looks like something out of Batman.
It does.
It's like this giant gothic place, and the guy at the welcome desk has the like light up on his face, and
he's like up like 20 feet over this huge
fantastic,
granite desk.
But then yes, he goes up the elevator and there's these sprawling hallways.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a pack of guys walking around waving papers and needing to talk to the boss all at once, which was pretty fantastic.
And like the boss, just the little bits where he's just like, no, cancel it, yes. And it's just like,
Tell them no.
It's like something out of 30 Rock.
It is.
We've got a crack team of, are they kidding, decision makers. No interpreters. I'm expecting big things to publish the finance of.
So yeah, he gets his job there at Information Services. He's shown to his office, which is like the crappiest little narrow, tiny office.
Right.
And another great visual gag, his desk connects through the wall to the other office, and he has to share the desk with the guy, so they're constantly pulling at it.
It's like a Charlie Chaplin bit.
It is.
They're like, when he meets the guy in the next office, right? What's his name?
Harvey Lime.
Harvey Lime or Lyman? I thought it was Lyman.
Either way,
Right.
he's the weirdest guy.
I need some information on a woman named Leighton.
A woman, man? I see.
Yes.
This movie just never lets Sam have a win.
No.
Just even what should be the easiest thing, everything has to be horrible.
Yeah.
Just down to like, he needs the tiniest favor from this person who's in the exact same position as him. And he's so weird.
Just refuses, makes it as difficult as possible.
Yeah.
And this is where it clicked for me that this is what Blade Runner is in my head. Because in Blade Runner, he's looking for the
replicant.
replicants. Like he's trying to track them.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really do that much detective work.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as the Tears in the Rain scene is excellent, I remember the lead up to it. I'm like, how did he even find them? Ah, whatever. Like, I don't know. They don't explain it.
Right.
But this movie's very much like, he actually does detective work. The movie kind of works like a noir.
It is absolutely a noir.
It's totally a noir. And like him getting this job and then trying to find her information on the computer and then being thrust from that to another location. This is what I wanted out of this movie. And in my head, what Blade Runner is like all these locations and actually like the breadcrumb detective work that takes you to new places with new interesting people that's constantly evolving. And that's what this movie does like so well. And this is the part of the movie where I'm like, oh, that's what this movie's structure is. It's a noir.
I gotta say, like, I can't disagree with you, but this is gonna be your Avatar: The Last Airbender is better than Breaking Bad. Just Brazil is
better than
Blade
You brought it up first, to be fair.
No, it's fair, but like...
If someone out there also feels this way or has drawn this comparison, let me know, because maybe I'm just crazy. But...
No, I think it's bang on, and it was around here, and I think... Like the next scene or two, he shows up in like he's in a big trench coat with like a hat, right?
He starts dressing like a detective.
They like lampshade it a little bit, and yeah, it's fun. He gets the printout of Jill. He gets her information,
which has essentially no new information.
Right.
And all he learns is that to learn more information, he needs to talk to the agent who was in charge of her account at information retrieval, who coincidentally is his friend Jack.
Right.
So he goes to visit Jack at this point.
And you get a little bit more of Jack here. He continues to progress, but he's essentially the anti-Sam.
Yeah.
Where he's just like, he's happy, he's got a family and kids, he's completely bought into the system, he's high up, but then he also is just, well... You find out some stuff about him.
Well, I mean, he walks in this scene in a like a bloody apron that he takes off. Because information retrieval, they don't really specify what it is, but clearly they are interrogating people to death constantly.
Even in this scene, when Sam asks him, he's like, oh, can I get this file? And he's like, oh, we're information retrieval, not information dispersal.
Oh, Sam, this is information retrieval, not information dispersal.
I love it.
And it's also like a great little moment. Like as much as Jack is clearly bought in, he's still impacted by this because when Sam goes into his office and Jack doesn't know he's there yet, Jack is in the sink and he's just standing there going like, and then he goes like Jack and he's like Sam, old buddy. Like he's put on a mask. He's forced himself to be part of the system.
And isn't his like 5-year-old daughter in the office at this point?
She's in the office as well. And the craziest line in the scene is that. He says like, I'm not getting anywhere with this, or something like that. And Jack says, you're not going to get anywhere in that suit.
Don't worry, I'll get to her. You'll never get anywhere in a suit like that.
And he gives him a new suit to try on. And Jack's daughter says, because Sam's in the awkward position where he has to change into the new suit, but he's in front of a 5-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And she says, put it on, big boy. I won't look at your willy.
Put it on, big boy. I won't look at your willy.
He goes back down to the lobby and coincidentally sees Jill.
Mm-hmm.
She just happens to be here because, like, the reason Jill is on the watch list is because she's like rattling cages.
She's like trying to dispute or like get information on Buttle being kidnapped because she was his upstairs neighbor.
Yeah, and she feels like he was unjustly killed, which he was.
And there's just a couple of those more kind of cliche, less clever. I don't want to say less clever, but the bureaucracy scenes where she hands in a form and it's like, oh, you have to get this stamped at that desk. She's like, but they sent me over here.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah.
So she's doing that coincidentally when Sam is there.
Yeah.
So he sees her. And they finally actually meet
at
this point.
Well,
Kind of. It takes a long time.
his elevator goes past, and you meet. I just wanted to call it out because the security guard, like the actual SS officer in the basement, is again just like the guy with 4 lines who's so funny.
So funny.
I'm going to have to fill in reports on this. Now then, what is the date today?
It's the... Oh, God, it'll have to wait!
Through a very confusing roundabout way, does manage to meet
does.
Jill while almost getting killed and chased out with guys shooting at him for 10 minutes. I skipped that because this movie has so much going on that even that somehow isn't consequential. I kind of want to get into this. How did you feel about the whole Jill thing? Because basically, from a plot perspective, he gets into Jill's car and orders her to drive away.
Yeah.
As pretending to be a government officer, but in reality he's trying to romance her.
This was definitely my least favorite 10-15 minutes of the movie, just because I feel like, I mean, they had no chemistry, her character, it made no sense. I mean, it made sense why she would want nothing to do with him, but in a way that was frustrating. Where I'm kind of like, okay, movie, they need to be together, but he's just a crazy man who's following her around, and when she's like trying to kick him out, like, I get it. And then they never do anything to endear him to her, really?
No. He just keeps staying, and eventually
and she's like, "Oh, all right,
she
I'll
stops
sleep
asking
with you."
questions. It's really weird. This is the part of the movie that kind of fell apart for me. And
I definitely agree.
And I was reading about it. What was interesting is apparently Terry Gilliam did really, I'm trying to remember her name, Kim Greist. He really didn't like her performance. So apparently the scenes with Jill were dramatically cut down. And Terry Gilliam had a lot of bad things to say about her and said, like, she did well in the audition, but then she didn't do well in the movie.
I mean, her 2 biggest credits on IMDb are the last movie we did, Manhunter, where she has 4 lines and is never in frame and lit. And then this. And I did read that she was a model previously, so lovely lady, I'm sure. Maybe wasn't cast for her acting chops.
Yeah, and it's also, like, I want to be fair to her. If most of her scenes were cut, it's kind of like not a really fair shake of her performance. I don't think she was good in the movie, but obviously all her stuff was cut out of it. But was it cut because she wasn't good, or is she not good because it was cut? Well, we don't really know.
It seems like they didn't really know what to do, because it's hard to make the love interest in this movie. And she ends up just kind of being in the wrong movie. Whereas Robert De Niro's character, Harry Tuttle, is in the wrong movie, but in a way where you kind of get it.
Yeah.
It's like he swung in from the Tarzan set next door, and it was fun. And she just didn't really find that niche of, like, why is she here? How does she fit in with all this other stuff?
Yeah.
She, like, her tone was wrong. She's too, like, somber.
Yeah, and she's very serious.
Yeah.
And she's like she's not a freedom fighter, just she's resisting the regime. She's not bought in at all. And this part of the movie is kind of like the end of the second act. This is where it kind of fell into a lull for me, because she, like, he's like on her car and she's trying to get him off the car, and it goes on too long because you're like, he's gonna, like, end up staying with her. And then, like you said, there's no real justification why she warms to him. Like, she goes around and, like, runs errands. She picks up a parcel. She picks up stuff and keeps driving around. He's just, like, in the car.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is he here? Why isn't she, like, she tries to kick him out, but he gets back in, and then she's like,
well, this rascal.
It's just
like,
weird.
We've seen so many people get murdered by the government this week. You should not be this chill about this.
It's really strange, and it never really gets answered.
No. He just wears her down, kinda.
But, like, he goes around with her for a while, and then they get to, like, a store, and the store gets bombed.
Right.
It gets blown up, and she is injured, and he gets injured. And in that whole kerfuffle, they both get arrested.
Right.
She gets arrested, and he gets, like, knocked unconscious and just brought in the car, because they recognize he's a government guy. But that's kind of like the end of their part of the movie where they, like, endear to each other until they reunite at the end. And
where they're in love all of a sudden.
Yeah, and at no point during this entire section did it feel like at any point she wouldn't just be like, this is a crazy guy that I need to lose as soon as possible.
Yeah, I don't, there's a lot of explanations you could throw out. I mean, obviously Monty Python doesn't really have a lot of conventional love stories to it, and neither do, like, Time Bandits doesn't, 12 Monkeys doesn't, like, it. I just don't think Terry Gilliam quite knew his limitations here, and maybe it was studio notes, maybe it was he was trying it out and it just didn't, it seems like it just didn't work with, like, his view of the character versus the actress's view of the character, and it's a bummer.
Yeah, it kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
We can't allow that small hand chops, but... Jill, you must be here, Jill!
No, this really goes back to his apartment. for the final time.
Right. And now it's literally shambles. There's just like
Yeah.
shards of crap everywhere.
Yeah, and the AC guys are still there.
Yeah.
And they've basically taken his home. They've like legally evicted him,
Right.
all because he didn't do the proper procedure to get his air conditioner fixed.
Don't forget your receipt.
Don't forget your receipt.
I'm sorry, but I'm a bit of a stickler for paperwork.
But our favorite character, Tuttle, comes back to the rescue.
Right.
Because he swoops in and hooks up poop to their like suits.
I gotta tell you, I was eating during this scene. This was rough.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah, he connects the sewage pipe and the air intake for their suits because they've like destroyed the environment in there. And literally they show their suits filling with sewage to the top and comedically exploding. And just like the look on Sam's face, Jonathan Pryce's performance in here, there's a lot of ways you could play that scene of him watching it, but he's just like,
yeah, he's so happy. Everything that's like him escaping from society gives him such like childlike joy.
yeah.
I have to call out that Tuttle once again ziplines away at an 85-degree angle. And then Jill comes back.
For some reason.
Did she actually get arrested or she not in the explosion?
I would need to rewatch. Like, honestly, this is probably something that other people than us have done video essays on. It's like, maybe at some point she died and he started hallucinating her. Maybe she was like in cahoots with Tuttle. I don't know. Whatever it was didn't quite land for me. She's just back now.
She's back. She like loves him now and kisses him.
Which, yeah. Again, I think probably there's a master plan here and there's something that you're supposed to get that I didn't.
I think it's just poorly done, this part. I don't think there's like a greater explanation.
Oh God, holy shit. We better get out of here quick. Come on.
This is where he goes back to Helpman's office.
Right, okay.
Because
this is where he's actually wearing the trench coat and the hat.
Yeah.
And this is a proper noir.
Because Jill is wanted still. So he goes to Helpman's office and deletes her from the system. He makes her legally dead so that the government will stop chasing her. I gotta call out, Helpman's office is another set that wowed me. Because he walks in and it's like 30-foot ceilings. It's like this gothic, weird, almost Tim Burton-esque location. And it's like, this is one scene. It's on screen for like 6 seconds.
I talked about it in our Streets of Fire episode where like the sets in that were great for what it is. And I was just like, oh, I love sets, man.
Yeah.
And this is like, oh, here's some sets.
This is a set movie.
Oh my God.
When he gets back from Helpman's office, Jill is in his mom's apartment where he stashed her.
Right.
Wearing his mom's wig and his mom's lingerie.
Yeah.
And then he says, I've killed you. You're dead in the system. And she says, care for a little necrophilia.
Right.
Care for a little necrophilia?
And
Which is just a great line.
Which is a great line. And then they have sex.
Yep.
And again, I'm like...
In the mom's bed, in the mom's lingerie.
And I will say, at first I'm like, do they know? And then later, clearly they're trying to play up the kind of Oedipus angle of this. But this was happening. There's like love music playing. It looks like it's going to fade to black. And I was very worried.
That was just the ending?
I really thought this might be the ending.
Wow.
And I was very concerned. I mean...
Yeah, fair enough.
It could have happened.
And this was over 2 hours in, to be fair.
Exactly. Like, I moved something on my screen and saw how much time was left. And I'm like, uh-oh, is that all credits? Because I hope this isn't the end. Thankfully.
This was another scene where I was kind of like, is Beau is Afraid just a remake of this movie?
It's a very good comparison. This movie's somewhere between Beau is Afraid and Blade Runner.
Care for a little necrophilia?
But it certainly was not over.
No.
Because the government, similar to the beginning of the movie, raids the apartment, swings in.
And already here, I felt like this was just something, like a recurring bit I'd been watching on TV since I was a kid. When they cut the hole in the ceiling, I'm like, yeah, I remember that, let's do it.
They take Sam,
Yeah.
and they abduct him.
And they put him in the thing, in the same, like, crazy torture suit.
Genuinely creepy.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is definitely the darkest, scariest point of the movie. And he's taken into the like bodysuit thing, and he's seeing from the point of view of what it is to be prosecuted in this system. It's like really messed up.
And really well shot, the way it's like cutting between different bureaucrats.
Yeah.
That are just continuing the last one's sentence, and they're all saying all this horrific stuff, but just so monotone and disinterested.
And you just see like in the background behind like plastic wrap, you see other bodies just being like an assembly line of people being pulled past. Very creepy. This is where they really stop pulling the punches, because they're like, we gave you the romantic happy ending, pull the rug out. Finally, Sam is like put in a jail cell, and Helpman comes in and informs him that Jill was killed.
Dressed as Santa Claus.
Dressed as Santa Claus. This is a Christmas movie.
Right,
We
it's a
forgot to
Christmas
mention,
movie.
this is like a backdoor Christmas movie. It's like, technically you could watch this around Christmas.
There's like a couple of recurring bits where everyone's giving each other the same stupid, useless Christmas present. The little toy thing.
Yeah. But yeah, dressed as Santa, Helpman comes in and informs him that Jill died, resisting arrest. Just off screen, she was killed.
Yeah.
Which really saved, like as messed up as this is, the love interest didn't work. So the fact that the movie killed her off screen almost felt like the movie's way of telling me, like, we know that wasn't good. And that's not the story we're gonna tell.
It's all a bit confusing, but it seems she was killed resisting arrest.
He then gets brought to a torture chamber, which is
sets. This is like Cerebro.
This was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
This is such a beautiful set, this giant chamber with the rails going along it. And of course, as you could probably expect, the agent assigned to torture him is, of course, Jack. Jack comes out. Great physical acting from Michael Palin, who I have not seen in a lot of stuff outside of comedy. But this scene, he really sells the feeling of like, shoot, I'm gonna have to. He doesn't want to do this.
Right.
Even though he's wearing a creepy baby mask, you get from his body language that he's like not happy that he has to, torture Sam.
And even he like covers up the microphone and is like, stop ruining this for both of us.
How could you do this to me?
Jack, I'm frightened.
Oh, how do you think I feel?
I guess we got to talk about this now. So I was very surprised when Jack then gets shot in the head immediately before giving Sam a lobotomy.
Right. Yep.
Because a bullet comes through his head, and I'm like, oh. And then Tuttle and his army of other vigilante AC repairmen come down from the ceiling and save Sam. And there's the grand escape.
It's just this ridiculous shootout. And I will say that I think this was Monty Python and the Holy Grail famously has one of the most kind of like, we don't know how to end this dang thing endings ever. This movie kind of does too. It's all fun, but none of it makes any sense.
No, because I wanted to ask you about that. So there's the shootout.
Yeah.
All of Tuttle's guys, like the 10 guys he came with, are all killed, saving Sam. Which, I don't know, that seems like a lot of lives for one guy. But anyways, they save Sam.
They blow up the government building.
The whole government building.
Yeah.
That was the point where I thought, is this a dream sequence?
Right, okay.
Were you already suspicious at this point?
Definitely.
Like, do you know where in this next 10 minutes were you like, oh, this is all a fantasy?
It wasn't until right at the end when he sees like Jill in the wig.
Okay.
Like, when he sees Jill like as his mom, that was when I got it.
Okay. Because once the place blew up and Tuttle's like, come on, kid, we're getting out of here. I was like,
Yeah.
And maybe part of my child brain remembered that this was a twist ending. I'm not totally sure. But spoilers, the next couple minutes are...
Tuttle gets eaten by newspapers.
Oh, yes.
Of course.
That was where I was really sure that something was not quite right. Because Tuttle literally gets wrapped in newspapers and disappears.
Right.
And it's basically Sam running away from the government for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Kind of until the movie ends. And it just gets more and more crazy.
And it's like the end of 2001 where he's now just running through like black voids into like weird...
It's the funeral.
It's trippy.
The funeral of his friend's mom, but...
His friend's mom, who, another just hilarious bit we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
She's just like slowly dying from cosmetic procedures and just getting like cartoonishly decrepit to the point where he tips the coffin over and it's just like jello.
It's just meat. It's just like loose meat in the coffin. There's a point in your brain just shuts off where you're like, okay, this is too much sensory overload. He has dreams of him like escaping to the country with Jill, and it's like another fake happy ending, and you're kind of like, And then, of course, it hard cuts back. He's never left the interrogation chamber.
Yeah.
He's sitting there, and either
Jack and Helpman are there.
Jack and Helpman are there, and they're like, we lost him.
Yeah.
He's lost his mind, and he's in a fantasy world in his own brain now.
And he's just got this great little expression on his face. And then it just slow pans out.
Slow pans out. And I don't know. I guess you could argue it's a happy ending because he just dreams of escaping this into his fantasies. And he kind of gets to do that in a very dark... Like, there was probably never a path where he actually escaped.
Right.
So it's kind of like a very dark, humorous way to have a happy ending for Sam, but...
It's all he ever wanted was to dream about Jill.
Jill. And that's it.
For some reason.
Yeah, it's a pretty effective ending, I think.
Yeah.
Like you're not like emotionally stirred by this in a way that you are in, really dark, serious movies. But there was a little bit of a part of there was a sadness. There's kind of like a melancholy.
Yeah,
and
it was a surprise. I was surprised by the emotion it left me with.
Yeah, and it also it's the kind of movie that ends in a way that makes me want to watch it again because you almost yearn for the early parts of the movie that were more simple and relaxed and.
Oh yeah,
and it's one of those movies that almost ends to cyclical viewing. Like it feels like a movie that could just be watched on repeat in a way.
This would be an excellent rewatch movie, just because my favorite parts of the movie is just all the little details.
Yeah,
there's just so I started trying to write them down. I'm like, nah, screw it.
That's what I did too. I'm missing jokes because I'm trying to write them down. You just need to watch this movie to appreciate all the humor, and even watching it this time, I know how much I miss. Like, I'm due for a rewatch again, just because of how much stuff I miss. And you're not only missing jokes, you're missing, world building.
Yeah.
He does a good job with the sci-fi elements just as much as, the comedy.
Every time you zoom in and, read a poster or a sign on the wall, or just look at what extras are doing in the background, or look at their clothes, there's always something.
Yeah.
There's always something. The amount of work that went into this, the amount of detail is just insane.
And we didn't even talk enough about the miniatures. All the skylines of the cities and the dream sequences with the cities erupting from the earth. Mm-hmm. Incredible miniature work. It doesn't look real, but it looks real enough that your brain accepts it for the reality of this movie.
Yeah.
And that's all you need.
One of my big things about this movie is just that, I'm sure, I don't know if it made a ton of money. It didn't really have legs in terms of cultural impact. You really need to properly appreciate this, have seen so much different stuff. It's crazy, because this movie it's evoking, Humphrey Bogart noirs. It's evoking, retro sci-fi, like Metropolis and M. More contemporary sci-fi at the time, like Blade Runner and Star Wars. And old adventure movies and parody, more Orwell, critique of capitalism and bureaucracy.
Yeah.
There's so much crap crammed in here.
And then it's just also funny in its own right.
Yeah.
As a farce on top of all of these other things it's already doing.
And just the fact that this wasn't Gilliam, this wasn't the movie Gilliam made at 55. This was his second movie.
Yeah.
Just the scope and scale of what he was trying to do here and pulled off pretty well. And again, I'll quit saying it, but again, Ari Aster's third movie is Beau is Afraid. And there's differences, don't get me wrong, but regardless of how effective it is for you, and I love both of those movies, just you gotta respect how the achievement at work here.
The biggest issue clearly we kind of both have with the movie is the love interest and how they handled Jill. If we had to give a bad point, it would probably be that. I was thinking about how you do this differently.
Okay.
Because Sam has dreams of Jill. Mm-hmm. That it's the woman of his dreams, they'll fall in love, and all this stuff, right?
She's the video game reward babe.
Yeah, exactly. By having him meet her 2/3 of the way through the movie, it almost shatters the illusion, because then she does fall in love with him, which almost makes the fantasy of it weird that it came true. Because it feels like the kind of thing that's only in his head.
Yeah.
It should be made up. I think the movie might have worked better, since the ending goes pure fantasy anyways. If the whole movie was him pursuing Jill, then it almost became a joke that they came so close to meeting so many times, but he never met her. He never could get a hold of her.
Yeah.
It's all detective work until the very end, he meets her, and maybe the first time he meets her, you have it play out like when she returns in this. He meets her, but she kisses him, and then they have sex, and it's how is it going possibly this well? But it feeds directly into the ending.
Right.
So then you're left with was that real or not? Did he ever actually meet her?
Right.
But by having him meet her when she did in the movie, that's not a possible interpretation. It's very clearly the events of the movie are occurring as they do when he meets her.
That's the Joker. That's the love interest in The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix.
Remind me.
And Joaquin Phoenix is the Joker.
Right.
There's the neighbor lady.
Right.
Who he loves from afar. And then there's a scene where he basically like rolls up to her and like rizzes her right into bed and they immediately fall in love.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, that was completely fake. And
Right.
he like held her at gunpoint and she was terrified.
Right.
So it'd be kind of like that. And that was really effective. Like, I'm not saying that this would have been a ripoff 40 years earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, yeah, like that was a good example of...
Right. I forgot. I hadn't seen that since theaters. Yeah, that is exactly kind of what I'm saying, is you make it like... You make it so that their dream never comes reality, or it's ambiguous whether it ever actually did. And then it would kind of save the only down part of the movie for me by just having... You don't have that awkward, like, why is she interested in him?
Mhm.
You can all just chalk it all up to fantasy.
Mhm.
And I think that might have worked better.
Well, another funny little bit of contrast is that they have a more Terry Gilliam appropriate love interest in the movie, which is his mom's friend's daughter with the headgear.
Yeah.
Who basically just stares into space and offers him salt and doesn't say anything. And like clearly the parents are trying to set them up.
She offers him salt before the food comes, and his mom goes, "Oh, not yet, dear."
Salt, not yet.
And this is very much like the comedy love interest, right? And it's funny. And then there's the last scene with the two of them, where he like screws up the courage and is like, I'm so sorry. Like, I know our parents want this, but I'm not. And she's like, oh, I don't like you either.
Yeah.
I just don't want you to be under any false impressions.
It's all right. I don't like you either.
Yeah.
And that was great. That was like all you needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if it was studio meddling or Terry Gilliam just trying one thing that didn't work out or whatever. It definitely didn't ruin the movie for me.
Certainly not. It's one little smudge on an otherwise excellent film.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a good segue for us to do scoring.
Let's do it. Who goes first? How does this work?
You do, because I picked the movie.
Okay. Critically, I'm going to give this movie an A-.
All right.
I think this makes it up high enough just because of the ambition, man. They put so much work into this and so much of it went well. This is just a remarkably high-achieving movie in so many aspects. And it's minus partially because the love interest didn't work, but it almost feels, I don't know, we've talked about it. It doesn't feel like a mistake that ruins it for me as much. For whatever reason, it doesn't, because it doesn't really drag at all the other parts of the movie very much. It's just like, there's one kind of boring part, you move on. But yeah, I think this reaches the point of kind of that Hall of Fame where, I mean, there's not a lot of similar movies, I mean, full stop, but there's not a lot of stuff that I would compare this like at much higher. Like I don't know that I can call something like Fifth Element better sets and world building. I don't know that I can call something like, I don't know, Office Space better dry comedy, notably. I don't like this does so many things
like within
so well.
its genre, it does an
within
excellent job.
several genres. It's near the top of the heap for me. And personally, it's going up to an A.
Alrighty.
I just had a hoot. I really had a blast watching this movie, and this is the most I've wanted to sit down and watch a movie again of any movie we've done so far.
Oh wow, that's
Given
great.
that it's also the longest movie, maybe not Dune 2, but it's the longest
yeah, it's
deep
one of
dive.
the longer probably the longest deep dive
It's
we've
like
done.
2.5 hours, and if somebody was like, oh, I want to watch that with you this weekend, I'd be like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
I would do it. And that's we've been saying, an A is a rewatch.
An A is a rewatch. And I'll get into that, because my critical is also going to be an A-.
Mm-hmm.
The minus is just kind of for the mishandling of the love interest. I think if that was cleaned up, I'd be hard-pressed to not give this an A or an A+.
If you just cut it out and get to like 150 runtime.
Yeah. There's a perfect movie in this.
Yeah.
If it's just cut a little bit differently, I do believe that. A little bit muddied there, maybe a little bit too long. That gives it the A-. My personal is going to stay at A-.
Okay.
I think that the kind of mishandling of the Jill stuff, I think bothered me more than you.
Yeah.
So it dragged it down a little bit. But this is a rewatch. I like I said, this movie ended and I almost wanted to watch it again right away. Like it's a movie that I could see watching like once a year and showing to someone new and having a good time and finding something new every time.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched a movie that I felt that way about in a while, so if it's a rewatch, it's got to be an A. So my personal is also going to be an A-. MVPs.
Oh yeah. Okay. I think you have to go first.
You haven't thought of it, have you?
No, I have, but I have two.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I think one of us is probably going to pick Terry Gilliam. I'm not. I'm going to tell you that I'm not picking Terry Gilliam, although...
I think my second person is who you have. But can we... We're gonna go on precedent and just say, Terry Gilliam, you were 90% of this movie, you win, but we want to talk about other people.
I want to talk about some other people.
The last 2 hours were just us gushing about things you did. We get it. We're going to pick other people.
Yeah, you're the best, but we got to pick some other MVPs that we haven't talked about at all.
Okay.
I'm going, and this is one of those ones where I think I've credited the right person.
I'm wondering if we got the right guy.
I'm going to go for Norman Garwood. That's yours?
Norman Garwood.
Norman Garwood is the production designer.
Absolutely.
And when I think about this movie, and this is why I think, like, I'm giving it to this guy over Terry Gilliam legitimately.
Yeah.
If this movie was just set on boring sets.
Right.
And it just looked like a normal movie, I don't think I would want to rewatch it the way I do or have this love and affinity for it. I think the reason this movie has legs, the reason this movie like works, is the sets and the miniatures and the locations and the set design and everything about how the way this movie looks is the reason that it stands out and I think stands the test of time. And I think even with how good the script was, you need that production design for this movie to be everything that it is, and that's why he gets MVP.
I'm very compelled to go watch interviews with him because I just have to imagine about him because I have to imagine the process between him and Terry Gilliam, who's just this insane person.
Yeah.
Where he's just describing some of these scenes. Like one of my favorite bits of set design was the robot in the lobby that just kept driving up to people and like poking them in the face and they'd like hit it and it would spin away.
Yeah.
And there's like a guy in the other room controlling it.
Yeah.
It's just like, that didn't need to be in the movie.
No, someone had to build
They put
that.
so much work in just for that couple little slapstick bits.
Yeah.
And on Norman Garwood, I don't know if did you look at his previous work?
I did not.
So there is a lot of crap, which I'm sure had great set designs. He's a talented dude. And then there was a little movie by the name of The Princess Bride.
Oh.
For which he was the production designer. And that is a movie
that is a movie.
With some sets,
yes.
Let me tell you. So clearly this guy has been underutilized by Hollywood.
No kidding.
Because, my goodness, that is two dang good, well-setted movies to have on your resume.
You'd be hard-pressed to pick two better movies to be like, I was the production designer on those.
Yeah.
So, good for you, Norman.
Way to go, Norman.
So now that I've stolen Norman...
I'll talk about Terry Gilliam, it's fine.
Okay,
I don't have another
boring Terry.
I just think that this movie is the consciousness of a vaguely insane human being beautifully translated.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that he weaves in all of these homages, all of these different cinematic styles into a cohesive theme and narrative that is still as funny as Monty Python while being while evoking some of the similar things to like Kafka or Orwell, while also being just a compelling noir mystery.
Yeah.
It's just insane. And I did do enough reading to see that this is not like he directed it on his phone while other people figured it out, obviously. Like, he was very heavily involved with every piece of the creative process here. And this is really... I still think 12 Monkeys is better for me. I don't know if I can be objective. I love 12 Monkeys.
I still haven't seen it, so...
Maybe But this is probably, this is a really, really good movie, and I just have to respect that as this was Terry Gilliam's work, and there was a bunch of people who kept up with him to make it happen.
I think one of us needed to give it to Terry, and from the behind the scenes stuff I read about, I think this took years off his life. So good job, Terry. You earned it, and good job, Norman.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's probably it, right?
We Braziled. We bought into the corporate nightmarish bureaucracy, and we had a grand old time doing it.
It was wonderful. Go watch it. Sorry we were a week late. I was on vacation.
That's okay.
Thanks.
Next week, we're gonna have a big duct in the background as honorary of Brazil.
Hi there. I want to talk to you about ducks.
I should mention. Make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us a lot.
We like those.
We have an Instagram where we tease upcoming episodes. We also have a Patreon where we tease upcoming episodes and post all our videos and...
But it's really expensive, right? Because it's Patreon?
No, it's free, Avery. It's free, and there's even a free bonus episode. If you want to see our Hell House 2 deep dive, look it up. So check out our Patreon. Come check us out on Instagram. Shoot us a comment. Let us know what you thought of Brazil, if you've seen Brazil, or if you want to see it.
Send us a message via pneumatic tube.
I am
Yeah,
If you
send
want.
us some tube messages. Do it all. And until next time, Brazil.
Thanks for coming to the thing we said from earlier that we called the Green Corner now.